did women specifically women lose this?
So this is my whole book.
You help people reclaim it. So anything that we're reclaiming is something we've always had, right? But either we lost it or someone else claimed it. So how have women lost this? Specifically women.
I love this question. Yeah. So I'll give a very short answer because I've literally written an entire book about this. It's going to come out hopefully in the next year and a half, called The Power of Ease. But the short version is around 5,000 years ago, 5 to 7,000 years ago, there's this massive shift that took place on the planet. And a male sky god was deemed to rule supreme over all others. And we were no longer allowed to worship the earth as goddess. We were no longer allowed to recognize the body as holy. We were no longer allowed to recognize life as sacred. And at that time, that shift took place, and this took several thousand years. Women were no longer recognized as divine. And that is when women were turned into literal possessions that could be owned and traded and dominated because men were granted, quote, divine authority by this new sky god to rule over women. And that created the ability to possess and choose for women. And so women were no longer allowed to choose for themselves, whereas they had been. They had been allowed to own property, to earn money, to work in the temples, to be priestesses. And they were literally ripped out and enslaved and prostituted. And women were no longer allowed to choose. And in order to effectuate that denial of choice, women were no longer allowed to earn money, to work, to own property, to divorce. Of course, marriage, when this initially happened, wasn't even a thing. But later in time, we created these laws that made it legal for a man to rape his wife, that allowed only him to choose.